So I'm an academic, so I'm going to approach this in a very academic way. I'm going to tell you what my statement is, then I'm going to actually tell you what I've told you, and then I'm going to finish off by telling you again. So, very simply, the statement that I'm going to talk about is that public funding for physical activity and sports for all initiatives should only be made available where an evidence base supports that particular initiative. Okay? Let me contextualise that for a second. How many, is there anybody in the audience over the last 3 or 4 days has had a headache? Stick your hand up if you've had a headache. Okay. Okay. If you've had a headache, what did you do to get rid of the headache?
Maybe try to get pills or
okay,
water.
So you've probably taken a paracetamol or an Anadin or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you take that?
To make it less or stop it.
Okay. So what's the evidence base that taking that drug gets rid of your headache?
Action.
Okay. Well, the evidence base is substantial. Okay. You don't get a drug into circulation, into production, making money without phase 1, 2, 3, 4 clinical trials. It costs the pharma industry a huge amount of money, which is why they justify asking significant amounts of money for the drugs that they provide to the healthcare system. So you take that drug because there's an evidence base that it is going to do something for you. Okay. Of course, what you do is you also follow guidance, and you don't take 10 pills, you take 2, because the evidence base supports what you do. Okay. What's the evidence base around this wonderful medicine that we call exercise? That's probably the one global message that is resonating at the moment, is that exercise is medicine. Okay. What's the FDA approval, for those of you who know some of these systems, what's the FDA approval related to exercise? How many phase 1, 2, 3, 4 clinical trials have been undertaken with exercise? Do we really know what the side effects are? Can you overdose on exercise? So fundamentally, all I'm saying is put exercise, or physical activity, or sport, or movement on the same footing as every other medicine that you use. Provide an evidence base. I'm just going to give you 2 examples. And not surprisingly, these come from Liverpool. So, GP referral. In the UK, there's something called GP referral, which is one way of providing exercise opportunities for those people who have disease or are at risk of disease. So you may get a 55-year-old gentleman, slightly overweight, maybe a little bit high blood pressure, maybe a little bit high lipid, okay, no occult event, no myocardial infarction. What do? Okay, one of the things is, of course, you can medicate these people, but the other thing you could do, quite sensibly, is you could provide exercise referral. And in the UK, these systems are quite common, but they're completely unregulated. And in Liverpool, we had a system where you got a GP referral, you went to an exercise practitioner, you were sent to a gymnasium for 12 weeks, and that was it. End of story. And the funny thing, really funny, the funny thing is the effectiveness of that is so unknown, variable, messy, whatever phrase you want to use. Why would you roll out that sort of specific program to the entire population if you don't know that it works? Okay, why doesn't it work? Well, it's very, very simplistic when you're dealing with a human population who are coming into this system, who could be male, female, could be young, old, could be historically exercisers or not. They could have a range of different non-communicable disease risk. They could have different genetic background to their health and well-being, multiple different levels of psychosocial differences, ethnic differences, religious differences that are all going to interact to affect their uptake of exercise. So what happened in Liverpool is we just did something slightly different. And we said to our constituent populations, and those constituent populations include the people who we're trying to target with exercise referral. So, standard groups would be the middle-aged males and females. We wanted to target the GPs, because those are the people who are doing the referral. We wanted to target the exercise practitioners, those people providing the evidence and the guidance, and actually say, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Get some insight to provide a service that is very much closer to what the individuals want to do. Co-production is quite a sort of common phrase at this particular point in science, but basically what it means is we changed significant components of the exercise referral, and fortuitously what that meant was that it was acceptable, it was feasible, and it had some really simplistic positive effects in the first trial that were related to personal health and well-being, so sort of self-report data. And in a further trial we were able to produce some clear evidence that there was a regression in cardiovascular disease risk, purely by changing some of the components and getting people involved in this particular process. Evidence-based, positive, roll that system out. Okay, second example. One of the things you've heard over the last couple of days is that lifestyle issues are often imprinted at a very early age. So if you've got an overweight child, they might become an overweight adult. If you've got an inactive child, they'll become an inactive adult. And therefore, a target for intervention and work to promote healthy lifestyle and physical activity is often very popular in children. Okay? It's happening in multiple countries around the globe. It's probably people from all 5 continents here who could probably talk about something that had been done in a local city or a local group that had targeted children. And in Liverpool, they wanted to do the same thing, with the conceptual idea of get them as early as you possibly can. So in Liverpool Active City, they came up with the idea very early on, let's have active play. Let's target people at the earliest possible age, 3 to 5 years. So these people are preschool, pre-kindergarten. Okay. Let's get them moving as positively, and let's get them imprinted with positive health behaviours. So they put together a programme. They trained the deliverers. They looked at introducing movement-type activities into the preschool environment. Looked at things like positive dietary advice, sitting breaks, etc., etc., etc. And active play was rolled out across the city. It was a really big deal in Liverpool, really, really big deal. And about 4 years into the programme, they said to the university, right, can we have a look at it and make sure that we're actually doing something really useful here? So we did. We did an evaluation, a live, in-the-field evaluation. We had 12 preschools, so 240 children. This is not a small sample, it's not massive, but it's not small. And we did a pre- and post-intervention assessment. What do you think happened? Absolutely no change in physical activity or sedentary time measured by standard approaches using accelerometry, etc., etc., etc. And absolutely no impact on development of fundamental movement skills, so getting back a little bit to some of the physical literacy type of issues. All well-intentioned, all well-intentioned. And this was a programme that was being rolled out with financial support from public funders across an entire city. And it was doing nothing. Well, no, that's not true. It was employing a number of people. Okay. But for the kids, it was actually doing very little to improve their fundamental physical activity or skill base. So, what did we do? We reported back to the city and we said, nice idea, understand why you did it, but you've either got to change and evaluate that positively, or you need to route your funding into some other structure, some other intervention, or some other support service. And I guess hopefully that's a useful message for the funding and the providers. But the secondary message was clearly, why didn't you do this right at the beginning of the process? And actually one of the things that they didn't do as a city, and you know, Liverpool's not perfect, is one of the things they didn't do is they didn't talk to preschools, they didn't talk to parents, and they didn't actually get any real interaction with 3 to 5-year-old kids. Granted, that's difficult, so you have to take on board some of those issues, but the insight process here had really failed. So, mindful of time, I suppose really that should be the other way around. You've got to see the positives to see the money follow rather than the money to get the positives. But I think this is actually a crucial issue, and it's not just public funding initiatives related to physical activity. It's probably all sport-related initiatives, physical activity initiatives, movement initiatives, physical literacy initiatives, is that if you're going to put money into them, you've got to have an understanding that there's going to be a value return. And if there's no value return, why the hell are you doing it? So, next time you have a headache, okay, are you going to go to some mystic, pull out a rock, rub it around on your forehead, chant? You know, are you going to do that because that's what you think is going to get rid of your headache? Of course you aren't. You're going to do something that has an evidence base either with you or with the process of dropping football. Okay, so that's my statement. I'm happy to be attacked or defended, but public funding for physical activity or sport for all initiatives should only be made available where there is an evidence base for that intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you know now how it works, and there's a lot to this statement. I will not give my personal opinion, maybe later, but let me see. Now I forgot who was. Do you want to be against, or do you want to agree?
Against.
Again.
You are against, and so you agree this time. Yes. Okay, so you are very strong in against. Take the floor, please. Anyone? Or Rotterdam?
My name is Michael, the city of Rotterdam. I think it's complete nonsense. Because yesterday, and I think the day before, many people all over the world told us, taught us, learned us, did examination about why move people. And that the answer most of the time is because of fun, because of social activity, because of having a good feeling. And shouldn't it be very nice when all those people who move because of the activities who are not evidence-based, that they have a good social time, they have fun, and they have a very good feeling.
I really disagree with the whole idea. I want to tell you why. Because I think when the children came to play by the scooters or by the bikes to do this activity, this is opening for them a new opportunity to go out from schools, to meet more people, and to talk with different people. It's not only just to merge the impact of the activity on the spot. The idea is far from this, not only impacting the things physically. This is my idea. The other thing I have to add is impacting the things on the, let's say in the long term, this is the right thing. But sometimes you need to find solutions, find fast solutions. Like when I'm getting the bill, it's stopping after 15 minutes. But if I didn't, I need to stay like 2 or 3 hours finding a way to stop it. It's a fast way. This is my idea.
Thank you very much. I think you should be a little bit stronger here. Otherwise, I will give the turn to Magosata, because she is from a ministry, so she is on the public funding. So where do you spend your money on? I mean, you should not spend money on things that you don't know where it's happening. But you can, as well as we say, you can burn the money. Well, how do you deal with it in Poland?
Yes, in Poland we support quite a lot from our public funding. We support many thousands of sport clubs all over the country. And we also have some evidence base. And we do it every year to check how the level of physical activity is growing or not. So from year to year, sometimes it's growing, sometimes it's constant. But we're still doing it because we don't know what would happen if we would stop financing it. So even to keep the constant level and doing what we do, we feel that
So you agree with
it's
that?
working.
So you agree with
We're not
that?
going to quit even if it's not growing.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Finn from Denmark. I really don't agree, because this is the typical example of that we need evidence for everything, and we need to measure everything. And if we had this need that we should document the evidence before we got the money to do something, then we will never get the money, because then we can't explain what will be the result. So we need the openness from the government that let's put money into the projects without knowing what will the result be. Because if we do that, then we may have a chance to go directions which will never be open before. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. If they are so silent, I don't know what's happening to
I
this
think you
side.
said something. You said you find some jobs for employees. I think this is a good measure, that you find jobs for people to do work. Think about that.
Hello, my name is Chantal from Switzerland. This all sounds well and good if we are in a dreamland where budgets are unlimited. I think the key word here is public funding. If we're asking governments and citizens to approve funding for projects, we better be able to back it up with science and evidence-based results, because that's the only way they're going to continue to support it. Thank you.
And I'm just going to add to that. When the other side are saying, you know, it's not only about physical activity, I think what we have to remember is when we do something, we have an objective. Whatever that objective is, can be measured. And yes, there might be other benefits that come out of that program, but if that's not why you set out to do the program, then of course you're not going to be measured against that. Yeah, it's fantastic when you employ people because a program happens. But if you employ them to achieve something and they don't achieve that, then maybe that's not a good use of money. Even if it helped them pay the rent, it's still not a good use of that money if you wanted them to achieve something that they're not achieving. So having the objectives and being able to measure them, whatever those objectives are, I think is fundamental.
Anyone more on your side? Yes. Welcome to the microphone. We want this one.
Which side? This side or this side?
He's on our side, all is on our side. Oh, you got the other side. Now you are crossing the other side.
From my position, but I am accepting your motion. I am in favor of this particular motion because once upon a time I was the district officer for physical education and youth welfare in 2 districts of West Bengal in India. At that particular time I know that how the government money is spent and what will be the ultimate objectives of that particular program. Question is that in Indian culture, there are 16 scholars. That means just like say song, recitation, dance, art, sculpture, painting, etc., etc. So in that particular area, sports also one of the main culture. And if we consider sports, there are another 16 part of this. So considering that physical activity and sports must for all, no doubt about it. But there must be some accountability, there must be some evaluation, and what is the objective, whether I am fulfilling that particular objectives or not, that is the main criteria, I think. Because public money is came from, on behalf of the public, through taxes or some different other sources towards the government. And government is accountable for that, to that particular public, how that particular money is expended, whether that particular objectives is fulfilled or not. So first of all, we should have to formulate the particular objectives and then spend accordingly. So there must be some evidence, there must be some documents, there must be some evaluation process through which that particular money is expended to the public interest. In case of charity, sorry, just 30 seconds. In case of charity, that is different thing. I have enough money, I am spending something. In India, there is 2% of corporate social responsibility. 2% of the profit of each and every corporate sector has to spend for social development, whether it may be education, it may be health, it may be transportation, it may be other sectors. That is not accountable by the government. Government will look after that, whether that particular 2% of money is expended or not. That is different thing. But if directly the government can expend that particular money, there must be some evaluation process and there must be some evidence. No doubt about it. I am strongly agree with your motion, sir. Please. Thank you very much.
This side. Oh! We welcome you.
Welcome.
For me, it's very interesting, this debate, because it's reflecting, from my point of view, very clearly the background of speakers. Either they are from civil society side, non-governmental organization, or from the state authority side. This conflict, especially in Slovenia, or I probably believe in any society, is pretty much the same. We are strongly behind that position that we have to allow anybody to approach the public money. I'm not talking about that anybody has to get the money, but just about that anybody has to have the same position, start position to approach the public money. Certainly, all the public money delivered through the public tenders. There are some conditions you have to fulfill. That's logical. But on the first place said, no, we won't deliver public money because it's not measured, we are not clear. Who are they? They deliver our money. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. This is money who is coming from citizens. They are just now on the authority for just short of time of their lives to deliver that money. My strongly belief is that it works only in partnership. And this is my idea. It's not the issue about that. This is a wrong question from my point of view. This is basically this is provocation. Logically, that we now have to talk about something. But the idea from my side is the idea is that we have to work together. And this is all about. Our sport for movement is behind that. Work together, cooperation, and find a solution. And at the end, we have to establish conditions together. Not that government said, we prepared that condition, that condition, that condition. If you won't fulfill, you will get the public money. No way! We have to be there when we are writing down the conditions. And that's the right way.
Very good. Thank you. Clear.
Good morning. I am not sure if my comment will demonstrate if I fall on this side.
Go on our side. You're on our side.
So maybe I'm in the middle. But this is my thinking. I think that over time, sport has already produced evidence enough, whether it's for competition that is making an impact, whether it's for social impact, whether it's for social inclusion. So we don't need more evidence. We need more projects to be supported because of the evidence that is already existed. So what the projects need to fulfill is to demonstrate the solutions that they are going, the problems that are going to solve, basing on the evidence that is already in existence. So we don't need more evidence that sport is making impact, whether it's sport for all or it's sport for social activity. We have evidence enough. We need more support to use sport to bring more impact and peace in the world.
Good morning, everyone. And although I'm from group this side, but I'm supporting I'm from Susma from Bihar, Himalayan regions, and our organization name is Kwanmukan from Karate. So, because I support 200% our speakers for topics, which is really wonderful, because it shows us like the children, 3 to 5 years, the sport is very important. Yes, I'm 100% agree. Being a Montessori teacher, I did teaching from the long times. So, according to the psychology of this, our human, this 3 to 5 years is the very important years. It's very sensitive years. Because like 75 to 80% is the brain is developed in that times, and all our physical structures change gradually. So, sports in every schools is very important. Like Montessori, we make our children's like more active, because if they don't have any work also, so we can give them some work for the fingers and all. Because if we make them pairships, it's a not so good opportunity to learn the children. So that's why I suggest and I appeal the governments for all the school, even for the, before speakers also telling for the rural area, that is very important. Like good schools, we can give them the lot of opportunities for the children, but how about for the rurals? So we can apply for the governments to put them the some of these sports clubs and the sport zones, so where the children they can learn the most. So thank you for yours giving me the chance to say something here, and thank you speakers very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we almost do it. Two more comments, please, Dennis. Then you can say that.
I'm Dennis. I'm from the Ministry of Culture and Sport from Greece. I tend to agree with Keith. I agree with Keith. I'm from the ministry because we give out funds, and we want the funds to be appreciated and to give us some results. The thing that we have to add is what the programs that you are applying in Liverpool are maybe not as good or exactly what I would like in a southern country or in an African country or somewhere in the East. So we have to adjust the programs to our culture, to our climate. That's point number one. And point number two, when it comes to evaluation, we cannot say that the program is good, is not good, because it was the first year that we implemented it. Maybe we need 3 or 4 years and then calculate if it's really going the right way or the wrong way. So this is my recommendation, and I totally agree with Keith.
Hello, still Catherine from Germany. I also have a scientific background, this is why I perfectly see the point. But since I'm sitting on this side, I have to defend the other point. We had addressed sectors like culture, arts, music before. There's public funding for these areas, and I fully agree that there should be public money for these areas. But how do you measure music? How do you measure arts? How do you measure poetry? So why measuring sports? Just applying same rules for everything.
Okay, the final statement then. This is the real last one, and we have to close.
Wrong microphone.
Basically, I'm working as a judge in the state of Kerala. So I'm sitting in center. I'm giving my service as a president of All India Association for Sport for All. My verdict in this session, I'm joined with Ms. Keith, because the topic is public fund. The public fund they should be evidence-based. Of course, we all in the planet will be more. We have clear objective, that's why we are all here. That yesterday we have long discussion regarding various subjects. So in sport is one of the main aspects to achieve our goal, to make good planet, good generations. But in this case, for all means, for using public fund, there should be evidence-based. It is for the social cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this statement had quite a good discussion, and I can understand it because I'm Dutch and we are always talking about money, so we want to know where our money goes. I can understand this side because you want to invest in sport and physical activity, but you want to know the outcomes ahead. And for your side, you think it's not only about the effect in health or physical activity, but it's also to fund social contacts, a little bit more intangible objectives. So I think we meet each other in the middle. We know that sport and physical activity have many more goals than only physical activity and health measures. So maybe that could be a short conclusion. Keith, what do you think? And do you have a favorite speaker?
I guess I should come to the favorite speaker, but the three of us here were given, sorry.
The three of us were asked to do a specific job, and our task, on which I guess we were going to be evaluated, was to be controversial, to get everybody to get a bit emotional about what we were talking about. And I guess if you want a good example of evidence base, I think the last 15 minutes has suggested that we've not done a particularly bad job. I think we've demonstrated that these issues are very important to all of us, and we have strong opinions and strong views, not necessarily all the same views all the same time, but there's nothing wrong with that. But from my perspective, hopefully we've delivered on our evidence base, and I would like to give my book to the gentleman from West Bengal who talked. Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, of course, Sport for All, usually we don't give prizes, so thank you all very much for your active contribution. So I want to give a big hand to you and to the speakers. I think this session was almost nice, because it will be nicer because we finish with a coffee break, and we need some coffee. Two more things. TAFISA asked me, does it still work? TAFISA asked me to join your coffee break also in the active TAFISA corner. You can get a little gadget, I understand, so please join the active TAFISA corner. And don't forget, if you didn't see my orange jacket, because you lost your glasses are here.